When Welsh bride Rhiannon and Indian groom Milan came together, there was a fusion of two cultures, two families, two nations. So they couldn't have just one wedding.
Two events quickly became the way forward, didn't they?
It did, yeah.
Their two-day celebration was a double dream for both the bride and groom.
We met on a night out, actually, at Kensington Roof Gardens back in 2002, when Milan pushed in at the bar, and that's how we got chatting, and the rest is history, so to speak.
Jostled for position in a very busy bar is probably closer to the truth, isn't it?
I thought he was quite cheeky, and he cracked a few jokes, and I found him quite entertaining that evening. And just quite charming, really. Milan gave me his telephone number. I didn't give Milan mine. I wanted to remain in control at all times. So
Hold on, but I asked you... No. I asked her what her name was. I knew which firm she worked at. I thought, no problem. I'll phone the switchboard. I said, what's your name? I've forgotten.
My surname.
What's your surname? That's
that was
right.
a tactic, you see, just to escape with your telephone number. And then the next day, I thought, this is against all the rules, but... maybe I'll get in touch with him. He seemed quite a nice guy. So I dropped him a text the following evening, contrary to sort of all the playing it cool things that you're supposed to do. But he replied straight away. And we then and then you sent me flowers at work, didn't you?
I did.
You sent me flowers at work. So we met up for a meal then the following weekend.
And there it began.
Now then I have found you.
So, in June 2004, at the Langham and the Landmark Hotels in London, Rhiannon and Milan got married.
We decided to have two weddings, just because the two celebrations that we felt we ought to have were so different. And we just thought it would be difficult to mix the two, and we just wanted to enjoy both separately. You know, I didn't have much experience of going to Indian weddings. I've been to quite a few now, but from everything I'd heard, I just thought it would be, you know, quite difficult to combine that. It would take away from that if we combined it with a Welsh wedding.
I think the parents were all kind of... that was their probably preference as well.
Mm-hmm.
You're in a situation where the ceremonies are very different. Rhiannon's parents always imagined her walking down the aisle in a white dress. I think Rhiannon always imagined herself walking down the aisle in a white dress. And my parents obviously had a view that it would be an Indian wedding in a slightly more in an Indian setting. So trying to combine that together in one ceremony is not possible, in one day is not really possible. It's a bit tricky. So two events quickly became the way forward, didn't they?
It did, yeah.
Which was a logistical nightmare waiting for us, but that was an early decision, I think. Well, I think we looked at all sorts of different options, you know, kind of hotels in the country, different kind of venues, and then I think we decided that both in central London would be ideal. Because most people, you know, would be coming from London or the kind of outskirts of London. People coming in from overseas would probably like to stay in London for a while anyway. And so we looked at lots of hotels. And I think Indian weddings are catered for by relatively few specialist companies. And, you know, the company that we loved were particularly good, you know, for catering and so on. Had very close relationships with the Langham Hotel. And they were happy for us to bang our drums in the lobby area. Well, I don't even know that actually, but they were happy for us to turn up with the drums and parade our way through the reception, and it was a great venue. It was perfect actually. I think they'd had Indian weddings there before.
Now ready to welcome the most important person, you can say, the bride.
I had a lot of help from Milan's mum to organise the Indian wedding, because, you know, I could not have done that on my own, and I think there was a lot of stress and a lot of work, but I think she really enjoyed it as well. She has two sons, but, you know, for that day, she pretty much had a daughter to organise a wedding for, because I didn't have a clue what I was doing. So she took me shopping to buy my Indian bride's dress, both locally in Southall and We went to Bombay as well for a few days to look for my wedding dress. So she helped me just so much. I couldn't have done it without her. We'd gone to a little bit of trouble to hide it in Bombay. It was complicated because a tailor came round to the hotel room to because that's how it worked. You know, we found the material and then it was made for us while we were there, and so there was various different stages. But I think we managed pretty much to keep it away from you.
Swasti Pusha Asuro Dhatulah Swasti Tyava Prithvi Suchetuna Om Shubhamangal Savadhan.
Maybe weddings are, I mean, the kind of underlying sentiment, ceremonies are similar. Right? It's all about two people coming together. It's two families coming together in many ways as well. There's a priest, there's all sorts of vows. I mean, a lot of the underlying kind of issues and underlying kind of pieces of the wedding are all the same, but it's just done in a slightly different way. There's a fire burning, there's kind of different ways of kind of demonstrating the commitment. You're walking around the fire, so the ceremony is much more involved. I mean, it can be a lot more involved. We opted for a slightly shorter ceremony actually, but it can go on for days.
Showers, all of you, take a little bit of showers and shower them with these flowers. Okay. Om Tubhramakre Parvahanam Suryat Bahusunasah Punah.
We had to take 7 steps around the fire, and as we took these 7 steps, we were showered with rose petals, I recall, and we had to feed each other sweets, which to symbolise sort of sweetness in your life. And we were tied together with a knot. We are sort of a scarf with a knot that's kind of bound you together. There was lots of things to do and stages to go through.
And each of the circles around the fire can symbolise the different vows that you take and the different aspects of marriage and so on.
You too. Stop as well. And we're always together. Yes. We should always be thinking about one another. Yeah? We should also always have one another's welfare in mind. Yeah? So next time you go McDonald's on your own, you think about the other one. The other one is also hungry. I should take something for him or her also. Yeah? The general consideration. Sorry.
I had 2 outfits for the Indian wedding as well. I had the red dress for the ceremony, and in the evening I wore a sort of a peach and cream outfit. But I felt amazing in those. They were so glamorous, so elegant. I think if you haven't worn one of those sorts of Indian dresses before, an Indian wedding dress, you are going to be just blown away by the detail, the sequins, the glitter. I felt so elegant in my Indian outfits as well. That was an amazing experience wearing them too. I remember walking into the room sort of for the wedding meal, and the cheer that went up, the applause was just, you never experienced that at any other time in your life. Just a whole, I haven't anyway, a whole room of people just wishing you well and cheering for you at the top of their voice.
We literally walked into the Indian reception. There was this huge cheers went up. It was perfect, and I think and then that was kind of, we did the first dance and so on and so forth. But that was a moment where just collectively everyone was just shouting and cheering, and it was fantastic. So Frank Sinatra playing in the background then as well, didn't we? Love and Marriage or something. But it was wonderful walking into that room. I think that was a real highlight actually.
Back home in Wales, we looked at several hotels, but we loved the Landmark, and the rooms for both the ceremony and the meal were just great, weren't they?
Yeah.
Just quite luxurious, and it was perfect location actually.
Yeah, it's a very elegant setting, and the drinks reception was great in that kind of the atrium area. And I think yes, it was actually perfect, wasn't it? But,
Yeah.
and they knew what they were doing. I think that the landmark
And that
couple,
helped.
they knew what they were. They're both hotels. They knew what they were doing.
Well, I do like shopping, so it wasn't a hardship schlepping around looking for a wedding dress. But I didn't confess to Milan, but I did have this little box of clippings of wedding dresses that I'd been collecting for a number of years. One celebrity whose dress I'd always loved was Zoe Ball, and I had a couple of pictures of her in Babington House at her wedding in this dress. So then when I started looking for my own dress, I just sort of did a bit of internet research just to find out where she'd got her dress from. And I found out that it was a shop very close to where we were living. The shop was just in Crouch End in North London, so I thought, well, it's worth a trip. So I ventured up to Crouch End, and I kind of acted normally for about 3 minutes in the shop, and then I thought, I can't be bothered with this anymore, and just said, actually, the only reason I'm here is because I know you designed Zoe Ball's dress, and I loved her dress. And they said, oh, that'll be this dress then, and just pulled it out. I was absolutely sort of breathless with excitement. I had to try it on. But I thought it's going, I'd built it up so much in my mind, I didn't actually think it was going to look flattering and look great, but straight away I loved it. Just the dress I'd always imagined getting married in was the dress I chose in the end. I quite liked the fullness of the dress. I thought it was quite romantic, and I think different dresses suit different brides, but that dress just seemed to work for me because I'm quite lucky. I'm tall, so the sort of big flowing skirt didn't look too bad, and to be honest, the sort of slim fit dresses, weren't really me anyway. The main thing is that you feel $1 million on your wedding day. It doesn't matter what you wear, as long as you feel great, and I did. I was excited but nervous. I'd hardly slept the night before. A mixture of excitement and nerves, and just wanting everything to be perfect, and having done all this work, you just wanted your dress to look absolutely right, your makeup, your hair. But I had lots of help, and everything went pretty smoothly.
Some get stung, it's worth the cost. I'd love to stay.
Welsh wedding, I wasn't really sure. I'd assumed it was going to be a white dress. Yeah, not necessarily in a church, I think, that was less appropriate for us, but I think some sort of ceremony where people were well dressed. No, I was very comfortable with a kind of Welsh wedding format or English wedding format. Well, Welsh, I think, Welsh is different. Welsh is different to English. And, one of the defining features of Indian culture is definitely that families are quite close-knit. And for me, the Welsh approach to life is so similar. But certainly, and that is very much a kind of feature of Welsh culture, that there is close-knit family life, isn't there? And There's kind of much more emphasis on regular communication and get-togethers. And I think that's really helped in terms of bringing our respective families together, actually.
I was slightly nervous on both occasions, but I really didn't know what to expect at the Indian wedding. I think sometimes if you don't know what to expect, you just kind of you go into it with a more open mind, and you'll just go with the flow. Whereas the British wedding, because I suppose I'd spent more time organising that wedding on my own, I was perhaps slightly more nervous. I was very nervous about walking down the aisle as well, with veil and white dress.
I thought she looked amazing. She looked absolutely beautiful. And I'd heard about the dress, and I'd heard it was, something that Zoe Ball had worn it or something. I'd heard lots about it, but I'd had no inkling whatsoever of what it looked like. So when she came down the aisle, she looked absolutely great. So I was like, wow. So much thought had gone into the dress, actually. I was like, I could see what all the fuss was about.
Good
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and a very warm welcome to you all. My name is Sarah Moran, the Superintendent Registrar, who will be conducting the ceremony, and with me today is Bessie Macmillan, the Registrar.
The first reading was by one of my closest friends, Liz, and then the second reading was in Welsh. It's a long...
I'm now going to ask each of you to declare that you know of no lawful reason why you may not be joined in matrimony to each other. Ladies and gentlemen, we've now reached the moment where Milan and Rhiannon will exchange their marriage vows with each other. So will you all please stand?
We had options. I wouldn't say we creatively wrote them, but we were given various different versions, and I spent a while going through them, piecing the bits together that we wanted.
Yeah.
Present.
These persons here present.
To witness that I, Milan,
To witness that I, Milan,
do take thee, Rhiannon,
do take thee, Rhiannon,
to be my lawful wedded wife,
to be my lawful wedded wife,
to love you,
to love you,
respect you,
respect you,
and adore you,
and adore you,
as long as we both shall live.
as long as we both shall live.
I promise to laugh with you.
I promise to laugh with you.
I'm known to be a little bit prone to weeping in films, other people's weddings, most things. In fact, I am prone to needing a tissue. There was a point where I think my voice does wobble, and I can remember it very clearly. I very nearly started to cry, but I managed to rein it back in and got through my vows. But I cry in most other people's weddings.
I could see that Rhiannon was getting very emotional. I squeezed her hand a couple of times and tried to reassure her, but at that point, again, in practical terms, you just want to get it right. It's easy kind of not to pay attention to what you're just being asked to say.
Respect you. And adore you.
And adore you.
As long as we both shall live.
As long as we both shall live.
I promise to laugh with you.
I promise to laugh with you.
Wipe your tears.
Wipe your tears.
Stand by your side.
Stand by your side.
And hold your hand all the days of my life.
And hold your hand all the days of my life.
You make me feel so young.
One of my friends from work went along one lunch hour and sampled lots of cake, fruit, chocolate cake. We were in our element. That wasn't a difficult chore. And true to form, couldn't decide. Even though I had 2 cakes, I still couldn't decide on which cake to have for the British wedding. So we had different tiers.
Yes.
We had fruit cake, 1 tier, and then chocolate cake, another tier. Weren't part of it. It's wrapped in tin foil. The Indian cake was eggless cake.
Yeah.
So that's an important difference, that we found a cake that was eggless cake.